in the Bar Kokhba revolt, Bar Kokhba was a messianic figure for the Jewish people. The failure of Bar Kokhba revolt deals a death blow to Jewish messianic hopes for millennia. So when we get to the year 135, all the news is bad. And the question is, as we face in our own lives, the first question we might ask is, why me? But if we're healthy and generative, whether it be as a person or as a people, after the why me comes the question, what now? What in the face of this devastating loss do we do next? Do we fold up shop? Do we quiescently say, we're going to figure out a nice little corner and sit there and pray our hearts out for the building of the third temple? And that will be Judaism. The hope for what no longer is and its future restoration. Or do we do, as the rabbis who came to this place did, say, in the face of devastation, we have to be as creative as we can possibly be. In partnership with God and God's inspiration, we have to figure this thing out, and we have to figure out a way to create a Judaism that is continuous with the past, but a Judaism that will meet the challenges of the present. So what is the Judaism that they create? The temple is gone. The sacrificial system is gone. The priesthood is gone. So what do they create? They create the Judaism that comes to be called Rabbinic Judaism. That is the Judaism to which just about all modern Judaism is heir to. And that Judaism says that in place of sacrifices, our practice will be founded upon three things: upon prayer, upon study, and upon acts of loving kindness. If there were a Jewish Trinity, and there isn't, but if there were, that would be it.
Say 'em again.
I will. Prayer, study, acts of loving kindness. That's it. What's the first difference you note between those three things and sacrifices in the temple?
You don't have to have a flag.
They're portable.
Doesn't benefit just one group.
Doesn't benefit just one group. With the destruction of a sacred geographic center, the Judaism that is created in that vacuum is a Judaism that is portable. A Judaism that can exist wherever the people exist. And a Judaism that can happen with every breath in every day. And that's what the rabbis create. And this is the place where they do, this is a place where they do some of its most important creating. Another important shift that takes place in this new system is a new definition of religious authority. So in the previous system, in the sacrificial system, religious authority was vested in whom?
Priests.
In the priests, right? How did you get to be a priest?
By birth.
By birth. Priesthood was hereditary. You were born into the priesthood. You became a priest. With the termination of that system, and again, none of this happens in a single day on the calendar. It all has earlier seedlings that come to blossom. So I'm being a little more punctuated than history ever is, right? But with the decline and ultimate disappearance of the priesthood, the religious leadership that emerges is the figure of rabbi. How do you get to be a rabbi? Study. Right? And so, right, as some of you know, our daughter Lily, at her ceremony of bat mitzvah a couple of months ago, was actually describing this transition. Having just studied the feudal system in 6th grade, she described the priestly class as a feudal system, said that, you were born into a certain class and that's what you got to be. And then she described the transition to rabbinic leadership, and as some of you witnessed, and as Nancy and I will never forget, Nancy and I are sitting up on the pulpit. Lily is addressing the congregation. She says, to become a priest, you had to be born into it. She looks back over her shoulder at her mother and father, turns back to the congregation and says, but anybody can become a rabbi. She still got her allowance. I don't know how it happened.
Oh, that's great.
Anybody can become a
That's
rabbi.
funny.
Religious leadership is radically
She's got guts.
democratized. Radically democratized. Learning is the portal to leadership. No longer is birth the portal to leadership. Learning is the portal to leadership. Now, all of this happens, that's a sort of, I don't know what we'd call it, a sort of intellectual history of this idea. Now I want to give you a sense of its literary history. Well, one more question, then we'll look at literary history, and then we'll look at the text. So here's the question. Once this Judaism, this new Judaism, this Judaism that it is a revolution. Think about how revolutionary that is. Think about that stuff we read about. Priests going out to examine skin diseases, right? And I say this without judgment, but it's not that long ago that we could have certain Christian groups visiting Temple Emanu-El asking us where the sacrificial altar was.
Oh, wow.
Because the Judaism they had
Yeah.
heard of was the Judaism of the Hebrew Bible, right? Unaware of this revolution.
So get on the table
And if
show you.
Protestants study Bible and live by it, then Jews must study Bible and live by it, and the Bible says, kill some pigeons when things go bad, right? So we're going to look at that literary history and how it develops in a second, but first let's go back to this portable Judaism idea. So there are a lot of things that are good about it, right? I don't need the sacred center. I've got democratized authority. I can live it in practice with every step and every breath. What might the pitfalls of a portable Judaism be?
How do you maintain it across communities?
Oh, wait, no community? What do you mean?
Well, I mean, if it's a portable, you can do it in your home with your family, but you don't have the Jewish community of a synagogue.
All right, so if you're the consultant to the Rabbinic Revolution, you're going to say, okay, this portable stuff is good, but make sure you don't become atomized, right? Make sure you don't become so diffuse. Make sure that across all of your portable communities, you create enough common norms that everybody feels like they're part of the same thing. Okay, excellent. What would other challenges of portability be? Yes?
Maybe less clear of a way to gain God's favor, whereas previously I did this, now I sacrifice this.
Ah, good. So if it's not quite as mechanical, let's say, then maybe how to do certain things becomes less clear, and the results of that in terms of God's favor might be less clear. Good. What else? Consistency. All right, consistency. If it's portable, where am I living?
Wherever you can.
Among whom am I living?
Anybody.
So what's my challenge?
Finding out.
Keeping true to the faith.
How do I
Assimilation.
maintain identity? Practicing this thing amidst all these different peoples and all these different communities. Some of you have seen the synagogue down below. Others are about to see it. A synagogue with a zodiac on the floor, with Greek and with Hebrew, right? Part of my challenge in a portable Judaism becomes, to what extent do I mingle with the surrounding culture? To what extent do I maintain my exclusive identity? A challenge, by the way, which is not unknown to the history of Baptist Christianity in America. Okay? So, we'll get back to that challenge in a second. The question of how I live this portable Judaism wherever I am. But first we're going to do a little bit of literary